365 days. 8,765 hours. 31,556,926 seconds. Seems like so long ago, but yet it also seems like just yesterday. October 21st in 2013, I was boarding an airplane with my sister and one of our pastors. Boarding an airplane at Los Angeles International Airport, bound for our final destination of Lilongwe, Malawi, Africa. Little did I know that this would be a journey that would change me and would alter my life forever. I remember flying into Africa after being on the plane for hours and hours and layovers here and there, making our final approach into Lilongwe, and the airport is kind of out from the rest of the city, so it's kind of out in the open and it's out in the fields, and there were buildings, straw roofs and brick walls. It was all dirt, and I remember thinking to myself, God, what have you gotten me into? I was later told by my sister that I didn't actually just think it, but I actually said it out loud. But little did I know that God had me there for a reason. He had me there for a purpose, and even now, a year later, I'm still learning these lessons and being reminded of these lessons, and the people and the sights, and the taste and the smells, but most importantly, the emotions. Take the work ethics of the Grace of God orphanage staff. These people work 7 days a week, sometimes 14, 15 hours a day, getting paid a very low rate, but yet they come back every day. When we were there, we had a chance to partake in one of their staff meetings, and in that staff meeting they told us that they didn't look at this as a job, but they looked at this as a ministry. Like, these kids, they know how important that these kids are at the orphanage, and they're just so excited to be able to do this work. And the cook's coming at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to make sure that breakfast is prepared for these kids before they go to school. And the kids that are left on grounds, they prepare lunch, and then they dinner for all the kids. And we have house moms that live on grounds, and we have our guards and our accountant. We have our directors of the orphanage, Ben and Titu, young men of Christ. All these people, work ethics, because they look at their work not as work, but as a ministry opportunity. There's so many lessons in Africa. I talk a lot about the joy that these people, young and old, have. We'll be driving down the road and seeing somebody, mostly women, carrying a child on their front, sometimes on their back as well, and carrying food or other supplies on their head, walking alongside the road, smiling. We see 15 people packed into a 10-passenger van, getting to where they need to go, school or work or home. People in the grocery stores, in the villages. I remember distinctly there was a young boy about 5 or 6 years old as we were driving into the Makanda village. He was running alongside our van, his feet just going as fast as they could, shouting, "Azungu, Azungu, Azungu." And when we got out of the van, finally at the destination in the village, he latched on and there was an instant connection. I remember the very first time going into a village in Africa last year. We'd only been in Africa about 24 hours, and it was time to get to work. We went to a village not knowing what to expect, not knowing what was going to come next. We got off the main path and started going down the dirt road, and we're in the white van, and these kids just start to shout, "Azungu, Azungu," and we were told by our guides and friends in Malawi that meant white person or missionary. They used that for all the missionaries that came over there. When we got out of the van, there were close to 75 kids surrounding the van. We had to nudge the door open a little bit just to let them know you were opening. And when you got out of the van, they would almost fight over who they were going to take, and they would grab a hold of your hand and caress you. We were later told that was a sign of affection. We're picking up babies and hugging on these kids. They were so filled with joy and love. Even having so little, they were so joyful with what they did have. I remember going to the crisis nursery, meeting little baby Rose. These kids in there not because they chose to be there, but these young babies, these months old or a year or two old. Families couldn't afford them. Mothers had passed away. Or other reasons. When we went into there, we were into the crisis nursery. We were put in a lobby. And as we were going through a quick orientation of what they did at the crisis nursery and why they did it and all that, they brought each of us in a baby. There were 3 of us, or it was 4 of us there, and they brought each of us a baby. And then we were given a tour of the facility, and it was a small facility. And then we were taken into the playroom, and the door was shut, and they brought in all the babies that were awake at that time. And for a couple of hours, we played endlessly with these little babies, and we met a 3-year-old who was super active and crawling all over. A couple of days later, we had the opportunity to go back, and near the end of that, we each had a baby that we had gotten really close to. And the little baby that I had gotten close to, her name was Rose. And I remember carrying her back to her crib, not knowing if and or when I would ever see her again. I put her in her crib. I prayed God's blessing over her. Wishing that I could just bring her home. Wish I could take all those kids home. Leaving little Rose in the crisis nursery was a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. I remember one day, one of the villages we were in, we were showing a film called the Jesus film. It's translated into virtually every language known. And it was projected onto a big piece of white cloth that was put up between 2 trees. And it ran by a generator, so it can go anywhere. remember standing in back of the crowd as they were watching this movie and looking up, and you could just see all the stars, and just looking around. And at that moment, it was just early on in the trip last year, I knew the purpose for being there. Getting to meet these people in these villages. They couldn't speak the same language verbally, but a handshake or a hug or a smile went a long way. Meeting and hanging out with the kids at the Grace of God Orphanage was a blessing. When we got there, they had a little performance that they put on for us with some songs and a welcome ceremony. They had a song that said, "Welcome to Go-Go" above the room. We got a chance to take a tour of the facilities. See how they live and get a chance to meet these kids and talk with these kids. My heart is heavy. I wish that I could be going on a plane right now to hug these kids and to love on them. Our last night at the Grace of God Orphanage was a Friday night. They had a song for us. It was a goodbye song that will forever hold a place in my heart. We see videos, we see pictures and updates from the Grace of God Orphanage from these kids. And even though these kids don't have much, they have joy. Not only did I learn a lesson of joy, but I learned a lesson of God has a universal language. Doesn't matter if you speak English or Chinese or Spanish or Australian or African or the different African languages or what you speak. God doesn't have a language barrier. It's God's language of love. I experienced so much of His love. What a year it's been. The journey is still beginning. The journey is still going. The journey hasn't ended. And as I sit here tonight and think about these coming months as we prepare to go back in June of 2015, my heart gets excited and filled with joy. A Malawi joy. I'm blessed that God has chosen me. Even though I may stumble, I will fall. God, I know, can still use me. And He's chosen me to help spread His love and to fulfill the Great Commission. And just to go over there and do whatever I need to do for these people. It's 1 year ago today. I was packing. Tonight, I'm not packing in a physical sense, but I'm already packing away those memories, making room for the new ones to come. Thanks for watching this video. I appreciate you guys very much. And if you guys would like to donate something to my upcoming mission trip, it'd be great. If not, that's great too. Either way, thanks for watching. Have a good night. God bless.